Hey, Fitheads. Today we talk with Victor Sagalovsky, the co-founder and CEO of Litewater Scientific. They make super deuterium-depleted light water. We learned what deuterium is, and now I'm concerned for my future.
For everything. This is one of those ones where you sit down with a nice big jug of cold water, and then the more stuff that comes up, the more like little tidbits and facts that he spits out. I'm like, ooh, do I want to be drinking this water? Like, I better put that down.
Yeah, he talks about what is already naturally in our water and what should naturally not be in our bodies, and what you can do about it and how it will transform how much energy you have. It's interesting to learn about something never even heard of and now be horrified of it.
Yeah, well, I was, and now I am.
Welcome to Total Fitheads.
Serious fitness for not so serious people.
Welcome, Victor. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
We have lots of questions. Let's open with the first one. How do I pronounce deuterium?
Deuterium. And,
okay.
Imagine yourself a scientist in a lab in 1930, and you just discover that not all hydrogen is the same. For thousands of years, for as long as we knew what hydrogen was, we thought there's only one type of hydrogen. And then these guys said, oh, there's another type of hydrogen, and there's only a small amount of it, but we got to figure out what to call it. So they went through a lot of things and settled on deuterium, because deuterium for two. So, because hydrogen is the first thing that was created in the universe, it's the first element on the periodic table, and then deuterium is the second thing, a quasi-element, because it's not quite because the second element, if you look in the periodic table, as we all learned in school, is helium, and then you have hydrogen, helium, and then in the middle you've got this deuterium, which is part of hydrogen, and hydrogen is what allows us to breathe and gives us life, and it powers rocket ships and stars and us. And then it's got this evil twin brother, deuterium, and there's just a little bit of it in the universe, but it's enough to do damage. So it's an incredible story. Actually, it's just phenomenal, because it fills in all the missing gaps and all the things you go, why does that work like that? And then when you look at this deuterium problem, it all starts to unravel and starts to make sense.
How does it differ if it's an evil twin?
So the reason everything in nature uses hydrogen as a fuel, as a source of life, is because it's so simple. Nature loves the path of least resistance, right? So hydrogen is the simplest element in nature. It has one proton, one electron, right? And deuterium adds a neutron. So it doubles the mass of that hydrogen. It wouldn't be a problem if it was some other element. However, it still binds with oxygen to create water. And in this case, it makes water that is known as semi-heavy water or heavy water. So what we know as water, H2O, hello, now instead of that H, a D has replaced it, right? And that D, that's the problem, because it's twice the size of a hydrogen. So everything in your body is saying, I want a hydrogen, and then it gets this deuterium and go, oh, I can't. What if you woke up tomorrow and you were twice the mass that you are now, twice the weight? You would notice it, right?
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah, we'd all notice it. And so we get the deuterium is putting a square peg in a round hole that's reserved for hydrogen through every physiological, every biochemical, everything in life. So when the deuterium replaces a hydrogen, you have problems, because it doesn't belong there. That's the problem. So yeah, this is the new contaminant you never knew about that can kill you, right? But what it is it's one of those things that's responsible for our aging process. So we're starting to understand now, in 21st century, we're starting to unravel the aging process, because this is a disease that we're all afflicted by. It's the one that we all share on this planet, that we're all going to die, the disease of aging and death. So finally, we're starting to unravel some of the mechanisms behind this. And this isn't the only one, but it's a big one, and that's deuterium. And you haven't heard of it before. But now you know. Bad news travels fast.
Well, I mean, why haven't we heard of it before?
You know, it's actually quite interesting because some things get overlooked in science, biochemistry, physiology. Because if you dig down, if you drill down on the science of this, like I have, you go into the early 50s where there were scientists in America that concluded deuterium is incompatible with life. And then they just put it on the shelf and said, okay, we'll just keep on going. And the other reason it was overlooked is because they mistake how much of a small amount can do such damage. So every one of us has between 1 and 2 grams of deuterium in their body. Me, I have less now because I've been getting rid of this stuff for the last 3 years. So 1 to 2 grams. And when you go, okay, well, that's not that much. In fact, if you were to say what that is in a glass of water, or a liter of water. A liter of water is 20,000 drops. So I'll put in perspective for you. Out of those 20,000 drops in your liter of water that you drink, there are 6 drops that instead of being H2O, and I'm simplifying a little, they're HDO. So 6 drops out of 20,000. What's the harm?
It's more than I expected, honestly.
Well, the scientist said, "What's the harm?" Because it's only 6 drops in 20,000. And then the scientist that had looked at 60 years of this science and said, "But it hasn't been explained how it damages our mitochondria." So he spent 2 years writing papers, doing mathematical modeling to explain this in 2007. And the reason he looked at it, this scientist that discovered the mechanisms of how this deuterium actually works, because it's a mechanical problem. I asked him and he said, well, I looked at the problem. I just looked at blood plasma, he said. He says, look, there's 6 to 10 times more deuterium in our blood than glucose, magnesium, potassium, calcium, things that we need, basic constituents of life, right? So he said, there's quite a bit of it because if we've grown up with this belief that we're 75% water, when in fact, by molecular weight, we are 98.8% water. So it's that much more important that we focus on the water that we're made of. And another radical bit of trivia that most people don't realize or know is that none of the water that we consume, none of the water that we drink ever makes it inside the mitochondria. That's water that's made from scratch, like grandma's apple pie. It's nothing you can get at the store. It's made from hydrogen and oxygen combusting, right, to create water. And so we have to look at that water. That's the first thing, is look at the water inside the mitochondria. And you go, oh, wow, this water is 60 to 70% deuterium depleted. The mitochondria must not like this deuterium stuff. Like, yeah, that's true. So there's really a lot of science behind this, but it's been overlooked because nobody has offered a solution. So we came around, and not only us, but there's 4 factories around the planet that said, okay, we'll offer a solution. We'll make this water because it's nearly impossible to reduce or remove this contaminant from water because it's so much like water. It's HDO instead of H2O. It's so similar, but it's not. And it has vast differences. And when I lecture, I do 3-hour lectures. I talk about the kinetic isotope effect. I talk about quantum tunneling. I talk about all the ways that this stuff slows you down. And it's in fact, what it's doing to us is it slows us down, and it happens gradually, just like aging. Aging happens gradually, and it's a mitochondrial problem. When we're young, our mitochondria, we have a lot of mitochondria in a cell, and then when we're old, we maybe have 500 times less in that cell. Sometimes, in a span of a lifetime, 50, 60 years. So it's like the mind is willing, but the body is weak. And the body's weak because it doesn't have the factories. They shut them down. They ship the jobs overseas. They'll never get started again. So, this is the insult to injury. As you get older, you need more energy to deal with the processes of aging. But as you get older, you lose energy. So it's like a snowball effect with no chance of redemption. And this is why Shakespeare, said we get shuffled off our mortal coil, in his words. It is a coil, right? And as soon as that coil gets undone, That's it. You're done. So we want to keep that coil wire tight. And to do that, we have to have energy, and that's bioelectrical energy. And that's energy that's made in ATP. It's made through the process of breaking down water to hydrogen, oxygen, and converting it back. So there's all these ways that we create energy. And the food that we put in our bodies, that's not energy. That's just a substrate. That's just raw material that we break down to create energy. You know, food doesn't create energy. It just says, the body says, oh, I'm going to take this bulk nonsense, this basically biomass. It says, I'm going to take this biomass and I'm going to convert it to hydrogen and oxygen to fuel my body and everything downstream of that. So when you start looking at these upstream solutions, it's beautiful because you go, okay, nature wants the path of least resistance. You go, yes, there it is. There, I caught it. There it is. There's the answer. You ask the right questions, you get the right answers. And so this is a phenomenal time where we have these tools that we can use to slow down the aging process. I mean, I'm 110. I'm kidding. But I'm 50, so I think I'm doing okay. And a lot of it's just cheating because I have lower deuterium levels.
Okay. How is it damaging our mitochondria, or is that your 2-hour talk?
I can explain it very simply. I can give you the elevator pitch.
Excellent. That's what we need on Total Fit Heads.
Yeah. We love the elevator. We should all be trained for the elevator pitch, right? That should be a course in the freshman year of college, elevator pitch 101.
The tweet. Keep my attention.
Keep my attention. Well, we have in the mitochondria, we have these, it's really quite phenomenal because for a lot of people, this makes them want to research further because what I'm about to tell you, it's so interesting. We have these little nanomotors by the trillions in our bodies, in our mitochondria. And the reason they're called nanomotors is because when you look at them, they look like motor generators. They spin and they produce, they create basically they spin to produce energy, which is ATP. Okay. Now, what causes them to spin to produce ATP, to produce energy? Well, there's these little protons, hydrogen, coming down and taking positions and causing, so there's over here, there's less protons, and over here, there's more. So these guys want to get to this side, right, of the membrane. So they cause this motor to spin, right? They get in there and they spin, and that produces ATP. Okay. And produces metabolic water. So, and it's beautiful because it's recycling. It's just a phenomenal piece of nature because these motors spin at up to 9,000 RPM at perfect 100% translation of energy efficiency. Something we can't make a motor to do that. So this is in the trillions in our bodies creating the energy that we need.
100%? Isn't that like a perfect machine or whatever?
It's a perfect machine. Yeah. We have a perfect machine. And there's other perfect machines in our body, the brain for one. But we have these little tiny nano perfect machines that are producing ATP. And they need hydrogen in order to spin. Now they have little positions for the proton of hydrogen, but they don't have one for deuterium because it's twice the size, right? It's like dragging your dead twin around. You're not going to be very popular at parties. So it's trying to occupy this position for a hydrogen, but it can't. So it causes that motor that's spinning really fast to stutter. And in that stuttering, it causes damage. And eventually that damage is irreparable because enzymes come in to repair the damage. But as soon as you have leakage in the membrane, that's you've now kicked the proverbial chair under, and now you can watch in slow motion fall over, because these motors are just designed for that proton. So also, what I didn't share with you is this happens about every 5.5 seconds. So these motors get impinged it's like a stutter. It's like everything's going through and then ka-chunk, okay? And that stutter creates shear. And in that moment, no ATP energy is produced. So it also caps you a little bit on the energy you produce. But worse than that is it creates wear and tear. And eventually this wear and tear destroys that mitochondria and eventually destroys that cell. So, and that never to come back, right? We're a copy of a copy of a copy, a Xerox of a Xerox. And as we go, we lose our integrity, right? And we need that optimal integrity in our membrane. If that membrane integrity is gone, then we lose that beautiful gradient that we have, and then kaput. There's no more energy. Okay. So as within, so without. It's the same in an electrical circuit as it is in our body. So that's the problem. And we are constantly being damaged by this deuterium. So the next question that you might ask is like, how come? How come in 1.5 billion years of evolution, we haven't figured out a mechanism to keep this deuterium out of that motor, away from that motor? That's the obvious question. That's the one I've been asked for a few years. It's like, well, shouldn't nature? And in fact, the answer is yes. We've the cellular biology that we have has done all that it can, and we've overrun our evolution because our deuterium levels on this planet have been creeping up over the last 100,000 years, and actually over the last 80 million years. Because if you go to Antarctica, and that's water frozen in time from 80 million years ago, the deuterium content there is 89 parts per million, and the oceans today are 155.76. And most humans on the planet are 150 ppm when we really need to be at 120 plus, in the 120 ppm range. And then everything locks in beautifully, our biochemistry. There's a new science devoted to this, new field, new branch of biochemistry known as deuteronomics, which endeavors to explain how deuterium is managed by the body. So the conclusion of deuteronomics is that our biochemistry is best tailored for the 120 ppm range, and we're at 150. So when you get down that 20%, it's golden. Things change. Your metabolism gets improved. The body's a self-healing organism. So we created a simple way to do that. You drink water that has less deuterium in it. Every day you lose a little bit of that deuterium burden, half a ppm, 1 ppm. So it takes time, 3 months, a month. Some people do it in a month, but really a year's time where you're living in a body that has 20% less deuterium has profound effects, not only short term, but long term. And this whole science comes from observing people in Siberia. In the late 50s, they were trying to figure out why these people had so many more centenarians. They had 324 per million, where everybody else in Europe had like 10 to 20. And they're like, why? These people are living like Eskimos. They don't even have basic medicine. And they're super healthy. They eat raw meat practically. They don't even have any vegetables. Not that that's bad for you. That's good. That's a keto diet. But they're just looking at these people and they're saying, why are they such a long health span, such a long lifespan? And after a few years, they figured it out because their water was and still is 16% lower in deuterium. And then you can correlate that to all the places around the planet where people live that are drinking water that's not 150, but more like, in the 130 range or the 125 range. And you go, wow, and you just through simple observation alone, a lot of truths open up, a lot of revelations. So this is exciting.
What is causing it to creep up on our planet? Are we making it? Watching television.
Nuclear testing doesn't help, but that's really not why. The last event that happened was the ice age ended. Okay. So when all those glaciers melted, it released an enormous amount of methane into the air, and methane is composed of a lot of hydrogen, and those hydrogen have deuterium. So also there was a thing in our collective history known as the flood, and the flood, if you look at that, that changed the dynamics on this planet, and that introduced a bit of deuterium as well, we believe. So, and in fact, if you go back in time, you see that when there was less deuterium, animals grew bigger, plants grew bigger, and you could see all kinds of things like that even today with animals that naturally practice a deuterium depletion kind of strategy in their evolution. So, and their migration. So this is what I was saying in the beginning. This is really exciting because it fills in a lot of fills in a lot of blanks on a lot of things, not only within but without, in the terrasphere that we live on.
What causes some water to be high? What causes different deuterium levels in water?
Well, because the ocean is 155.76, if you're anywhere near the ocean, then you're going to be closer to what the ocean is. So in places where you have lower deuterium, let's say Boulder, Colorado, the tap water, I always love to use this as an example because LA or the coastal cities, Miami, New York, San Francisco, all these places, their water is 150 parts per million. And keep in mind, no reverse osmosis, no distiller, no home unit, nothing will filter that out. Okay. And then you go to Boulder, and Boulder's 139 out the tap. You go, wow, why? Well, that has to do with not only the elevation, but having your hydrological cycle, your rain cycle, away from the ocean. If it's a more localized pattern, then you're going to have less deuterium in those areas. So in mountainous areas, like on the eastern slope of the Rockies, you're going to have water that comes out of the ground that has less deuterium than on the western slope, because the hydrology of the area is what creates that. So in places that like Siberia, you might not be in a high elevation area and you might be close to the ocean, but because the evaporation, condensation, that rain cycle and that snow cycle is more amplified because you're going through a greater extreme in the cold part of that, then you also have less deuterium. So it has to do with just natural cycles. So what we do is we just copy that in a factory and create these giant columns and to separate the HDO out of the H2O.
So is your factory just a huge Brita filter?
I wish it was that easy. They're like almost 40-foot tall columns, and we have a whole bunch of them, like dozens of them. And so, the cream at the top is the light water, and what stays at the bottom is the heavier stuff. So it's a process known as fractional distillation, but it's very fine technology. So it took decades to figure it out, and this is why there wasn't anything commercial available. It takes a commercial product to advance something, because I'm promoting the science, but I'm also promoting our product. But I got into this because I was really involved in the science. I was convinced of the science. So, and the science hasn't proved us wrong. This is one of those times that the science backs up everything that it shows. So everything the science is saying you could eventually experience and feel in your own body. So I love that part when science proves you right. And so, yeah.
What about products with water? Like, is Coke heavier than Pepsi?
Heavier?
Yeah. Well, more deuterium.
They're the same. They're going to be about 150. And you know what? It's actually going to be worse than that. And I'll tell you why. Because there's a lot of deuterium locked in high fructose corn syrup. That's not natural. Carbohydrates, people consuming overconsumption of carbohydrates, that puts people on a deuterium level that's even above what is natural. And then you see somebody that has terrible chronic conditions because the deuterium level is higher than what occurs in nature because of the adulteration of the food. High fructose corn syrup is one of those things. So you can get away with it when you're young, but as you get older, that accumulation of deuterium is constant. It's ongoing. It doesn't stop from the time we're born to the time we die. So, and there's no part of our physiology that's programmed to ever believe that our deuterium levels are going to go down as we age. So when you do this to yourself, when you actually do lower your deuterium levels, your body goes, wow, what a surprise. I didn't expect that.
And you don't want it completely gone, right? That's what I'm getting.
You could never.
Okay.
You could never. It's in the food, right? So the act of drinking deuterium-depleted water, it's just using this principle known as hydrogen exchange. It's very simple. If you take in water into your body that has less deuterium than the water that's in your body now, then you'll release a little bit of this, right? Respiration, perspiration, urination, breath vapor, all that stuff. So daily. So you'll lower your deuterium levels. And then the key is to maintain them. And this is going to be huge for athletics, because most people just need to be in 120 ppm or about 120 to 130. But if you're really interested in increasing your athletic performance, or you're dealing with some chronic condition where you need more self-healing energy, then you go lower. You go to the 100 ppm range, or you go even lower, which is harder to maintain. It's a very simple equation. There's something known as proton motive force. It's how protons travel through these nanomotors to produce energy. So this can be measured. So theoretically, when you take out deuterium, you have 6 times more proton motive force. That's theoretical, right? That nothing is done in a vacuum. But 2 times, twice the energy that you have now, that's real. That's 100% real. And this is not like coffee adrenal energy. This is energy deep down at the core, in the mitochondria, at the most intimate nano-confined spaces in our bodies where energy is made and stored. So it's something that is top down, like I said before, upstream. So I've always, mentally and physically, I've always hiked upstream. If I see a river, I'm going to hike and find where the source of it comes out. The spring, I want to kiss that rock where it comes out. That's what I'm interested in. So that was where my inquiry came from, was going upstream of something. It's like, why do we age? Well, it's got to be a reason. Let's figure this stuff out. And the data's there. We live in the age of information. The information is there. You just have to ask the right questions.
How do you measure your deuterium levels? And once they go down, or I mean, I assume you said earlier your levels are lower. I mean, are these like noticeable differences day to day, or is this just
so
live to 900?
So if you deplete, you have to maintain. So they'll start. You stop drinking DDW or start practicing a deuterium depleted lifestyle. They'll start creeping back up. Not that there's still benefit in that, but like I said, a little bit a day, right? Half a ppm to 1 ppm a day. So you can measure your deuterium. We created our own lab, and it measures saliva. There's another lab that does this too. There's actually, I think, 3 in the country. And you can measure saliva. You can measure breath vapor. We do saliva. You can measure your drinking water, whatever you want. So we have this instrument, and you can measure before, or you can just guess what you are before, because you're going to be whatever the water is you're drinking is, and you could guess what that is based on where you live. And then
I'm in LA, so it's got to be like 500,000-600,000.
LA water is not. I mean, there's worse. Trust me.
I only drink Coke, so I'm winning.
There's a lot. Yeah, that's now we've got a problem. I wouldn't. You know what? I wouldn't even recommend DDW for you. I would actively, if you are a Coke drinker, I would actively discourage you from trying. No, but LA is 150 ppm. So your body's going to be around that. Now, if it's lower, like if you tested your body and it was lower, then you go, okay, your biochemistry is working. You're actually filtering out deuterium, which you should be, a little bit, right? And if it's higher than 150, then your diet is terrible. You're eating too much, you're breathing wrong, and you're consuming the wrong foods, because that's the only way your deuterium level is going to go up. So basically, by drinking deuterium depleted water, over 30 to 90 days, you get down to the 120 ppm range. Mm-hmm. And then you just maintain that. And so there's the protocol, how you dilute it, the strategy of how to drink it most effectively, because it is expensive to get to this baseline is important. And then after 3 months, most people test the saliva. They say, okay, I got there, I didn't, what am I doing wrong? Because remember, everything you put in your body contributes to deuterium. And there's only one thing that contributes to removing that, and that's DDW, deuterium depleted water. Now, if you eat a high fat diet, mostly keto, that is a strategy for deuterium depletion, because nature depletes the fats and it loads up the carbs. So animal fats, saturated fats from nature, like palm kernel, these are lower in deuterium. And carbohydrates are much higher. So So that's another strategy. Fasting is another strategy. So these are all people. There's people that practice deuterium depletion that just said, I'm not even going to drink any water. And they do just quite fine because they get their water from food. Right? Because we recycle 20% of our water needs daily. And then you think of how much water there is in food and fruit and things like this. Then you realize that you need a lot less water than you think. And in fact, if you do some dry fasting, you realize this is all, we've been lied to. We need a lot less than we think we need. And we can be even healthier than we are now. We're just constantly, we're overloading ourselves. We're overloading ourselves with too much food, too many thoughts in our brain, even too much water. I see this problem of people, the more water they drink, the more dehydrated they become because it's the wrong water. And I see a problem of not only drinking too much and eating too much, but also breathing too much because they don't understand, because most people don't understand the physiology of breathing. So a lot of people are over breathing, which is shortening their lifespan. So,
I get that you're a water guy. How do people breathe too much? What does that mean?
People exhale too much of their CO2, and this causes a condition called hypocapnia. And this is bad because we need a balance of CO2. In fact, we don't breathe for oxygen. If we breathe for oxygen, we need about a breath a minute. We breathe because we're exhaling CO2, waste product, right? But even then, we're exhaling too much of it. And this is something that happens to mouth breathers. This is something that happens to overbreathers, people in exercise. And so you disrupt that beautiful balance of oxygen to carbon dioxide. And there's a doctor from a Soviet era named Buteyko that he did a lot of research in this. In fact, this made it all the way up into the space shuttle, on how to breathe, because this is little known about, is that not only how important oxygen is to us, but carbon dioxide, nitric oxide, these gases are so important. So people are chronic overbreathers as well. And this can shorten your lifespan. It's radical work. If you haven't heard this before, it's mind blowing, but the data is there. So, and it fits in with everything else that I'm talking about: over drinking, overeating, and over breathing, and overthinking. We just, and these things take energy, right? It's just the game of energy that we're playing. That's it. So what do we do? Well, how do we increase the energy? Deuterium depletion is the only thing that will, at the end of the day, will give you a net energy gain. Everything else is a net energy deficit. It might give you temporary energy, but at the end, it robs you, right? Electrons. And so we want to do all these things that we gain energy, and we're constantly scheming for these things, going out in the sun, red light, saunas, breath work, meditation. We're constantly we're trying to figure out ways to harness more energy and not only acquire more energy, but put up less resistance to this energy and grow our capacitance for this energy. So we can have more of it, less resistance in it coming in and out. So it's an energy game. So this is something I recognized very early on. And I go, okay, how do you disrupt this pattern? And one of the ways you disrupt this pattern is to lower this deuterium. So when I found this research, I didn't overlook it. I go, this is important. There's some important missing links here. And I didn't come from a traditional academic background where I'm forced to believe everything I hear. I question everything. Why do we have a 7-day week? Why not 10? I question everything. 7 days, why? So and then you hunt for you ask the question and you hunt for the answer. So this is an answer. This is an answer to, I use the word pro-youthing instead of anti-aging, but I think you know what I mean.
Solid. Max, you're looking pretty skeptical, but I have heard the over-breathing thing before. It's in Breathe by James Nestor. Been thinking about that for a while. I hate.
Well, you know what your control pause is? So you can measure it. If you hold your exhale, you can measure your control pause and how long you can hold your exhale. So the longer you can hold your exhale, and naturally. Now, there's two ways to measure it. One, you can just exhale naturally, and two, you you can exhale, you can just do maximum hold. But that really determines a lot. That determines a big part of the state of your health. People think it's all about food, but you show me somebody that is mouth breathing, and they're eating all the right foods, practicing all the right meditations with their mouth breathing. They're shortening their lifespan. Nothing can stop that until they fix that problem. Anyway, I'm done preaching. Thank you very much.
I'm not here. I'm not done having you at the altar. Have you water fasted?
Water and
dry fasted. I mean, sorry,
yeah,
dry fasted.
Yeah. I did 144 hours. I was going to go longer. You know, my mom said, you better stop this or I'm going to call the police. But I know people that have gone 11 days and longer, dry fasting, no water. And by day 5, I hit my stride. I was good. The problem is that you lose all your fat. You drop weight like crazy. I mean, if you got extra pounds you want to lose, go dry fast. It's insane because your body is burning fat for water. Your water requirements don't change. Your body's just going to burn your own fat to create H2O. But in that process, you're actually creating deuterium-depleted water, because if you burn a kilo of fat, you get about a liter of deuterium-depleted water. So dry fasting is a strategy for anti-aging or pro-youthing of this, as part of this family of deuterium depletion interventions.
Max, you doing it?
No, I like my water. I like my body. I guess that's sort of my knee jerk is I always, there's a lot of like, oh,
you know what, you have to want to do it.
That. I'm
you
like,
got to want to do it. I mean, for me, you know, I read the science on it. That's the only reason I got interested. And then somebody said, Vic, you should do a 24-hour dry fast. I read the book, I read the science. This is fascinating. I had already done 12-day water fasts. Those are easy. Okay. And I go, okay, I'll try this. And then instead of 24 hours, I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep going. So my first time I did 5 days.
You didn't even ease your way in? The 5 days was your first time?
Just did 5 days. Yeah. Because it's the power of the mind. And knowing the science, so you can rest assured and not panic that you're going to die. You know, and if you know the science, you can assure yourself that you're not going to die. And so as long as you can still create saliva in your mouth, you're totally safe. Okay. As soon as your mouth goes dry, then you better get out of it. And you have to know how to come out of a dry fast too. You can't just, you know, go all of a sudden go 5 days, I'm going to Red Lobster. You know, it's not happening like that.
Why not? That's exactly what I would do. Thank you for telling me not.
So what are you eating on a fast?
Well, you want to maintain that ketosis as long as possible. You know, your stomach has shrunk down like into nothingness. Your intestines are also really shrunk down. So you want to be gentle, you know, and you want to stay in ketosis as long as possible. So you start with like vegetable juices, maybe some broths, things like that, you know, and you ease back into it over a few days. You know? And that's even harder than the fasting, because it's like,
I mean, when you're on your fast, you're not eating anything, you're not drinking anything. Is that what you're describing?
No food, no water, nothing.
No food, no water.
Just air. And by the third day, you could taste the water in the air. You're like, water in the air. But it's an incredible intervention, because one, it's a pattern interrupt, because you realize how we all have these emotional triggers. So we don't always eat for sustenance or nourishment. You know, everything is an emotional trigger, from getting a coffee or a soda pop or coconut water to having a snack. So you just say, and then you observe these. You just sit there and you just, you know, you go like, no, I said no. So you observe all of your emotional triggers, and you interrupt your own pattern. And then on the physiological level, the elevator pitch on the dry fasting is that after you do it, minimum 72 hours, I'd say is optimal. Your body produces enormous amount of growth hormone afterwards. So you actually, for a brief for a brief time, a few weeks, you actually reverse the clock because your body's like, it's like the body celebrates the fact that you didn't die. It didn't die. It's like, woo, growth hormone for everybody, you know? So it really, yeah, that's what the hormetic effect is. That's hormesis. But then you also have this, autophagy that happens, which is great because it's like, it's a cleansing, all these dead old cells waiting to die. And all of a sudden they're like, all right, it's like, you know, round up everything, throw it in the furnace, you know, nothing to spare. So all your old viruses, bacteria. So as you get into longer fasts, then you have viruses, bacteria, you have all these neoplasms and things like all these pleomorphic type bodies revert back to normalcy and also just get burned up. So it's phenomenal stuff if you can weather it, you know. But if you're not sick, you're not drawn to this. This comes from the doctor that's probably the most adept at this, that wrote the book. These people were dying of cancer because they were exposed to radiation from Chernobyl. And the ones that dry fasted lived, and the ones that didn't died. A matter of life and death. So if you don't have that, then, and it's on all our religious holidays, everybody, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, we all have a fast day or fast days. It's just, it's programmed in because they're trying to perpetuate the health of the species, of the culture. So fasting is really important. And it resets our clock. That's the beauty of it. If you have a problem, just stop everything. It's what dogs do. A dog gets sick, he just sits there. He doesn't eat anything for days sometimes until he's better. This is our natural mechanism for repair, is fasting, among other things. So if you don't need it, you don't need it. But if you do, you'll go, wow, I didn't realize it was that easy.
And I'm getting convinced. Max, you're going to be so mad when I stop drinking water.
But if you got, but really, yeah, like load
I'll
up.
be even more mad when you die, you know?
I'm so upset.
Tried to tell her.
Tried to tell. It's good to eat fat, you know, ease into it by being keto adapted already. So I think that's important because then, you know, people deal with all kinds of glycemic issues because their diet is overly focused on that glucose pathway of energy production, and instead just focus on that fat, and we'll all be better for it because it's our natural physiology. So
well, I fast all the time, but then like just a constant chugging of water during it. So that would be the change here.
You know, I actually found the dry fasting easier than water fasting, even though I can do water fasting longer. And they say if you were to equate the two, 3 days of water fasting equals 1 day of dry fast. So, but I found it easier because there was nothing to remind me of the world of the living. It was just, like, if you cut everything off, it's almost easier to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Like these people that say, "Oh, well, I'm fasting today. I'm having green juice and a smoothie." I'm like, "You're not fasting." And I find that incredibly difficult because you still have
fried chicken fasting today.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I used to, you know, if I were to hold a workshop called Heal Your Vegan, I would take people to KFC. Let the healing begin. But yeah, so it's a lot easier, I think, when you can just go cold turkey sometimes. At least for me it is. And then you just observe and actually just to betray, you know, this little secret of mine. I love the feeling of that feelingness of feeling empty. That, you know, when nothing, you have the energy is so different when you're empty. And I'm not saying, oh, I'm hungry, but after 2 days, sometimes after a day, the body goes, it's very interesting because the body goes, because up until that point, for like 24 to 48 hours, your body is sending you signals like, hey, I'm hungry, dude. Give me some food. Hello. You know, after 2 days, the body stops trying. It's like, all right, he's not listening. And then you're not hungry anymore. And yet you still have energy. And you go, what is everything I've been taught a lie? And the third day you wake up, you feel great and you still have plenty of energy. You're like, what's going on? So, and you don't have to do anything to any extreme nature, a day or 2 or 3. That's not extreme. it's just the natural cleansing that animals do, that humans used to do, that we traditionally, people have only ate one meal a day anyway. You know, we didn't have like this 3 meals, 4 meals a day thing. You know, we ate a big meal, and then we passed out, and then you know, so yeah, that's what else.
The semi-heavy water. Is there double heavy water? What about D2O?
D2O is why we have nuclear bombs and why we have atomic power plants. We wouldn't have it without this heavy water, this D2O. And D2O is something that can only be made in a lab. Or let's just, here, I'll explain it like this. If you have a molecule, 1 out of every 3,300 molecules of water is HDO. 1 out of every 41 million molecules of water is D2O. So it's a lot harder, a lot more expensive to make pure heavy water. And this is really important, because if it wasn't for the discovery of heavy water, we wouldn't have had everything we had in the 20th century. Energy, the wars, all of it. And now I think I like to, you know, poetically suggest that if the 20th century was about heavy water, then the 21st century could be about light water, because we went down that road, and we understand the deuterium part. And deuterium, don't get me wrong, deuterium has its function. It's just has no function in the body that helps our lifespan. So we want to reduce it. And interesting thing about D2O, when they first made it in the late 30s, it looks like water, it tastes like water. For all practical purposes, it's water, right? They didn't know any different. It'll kill you by the 3rd day if that's all you drink. So, yeah, you can't get it, but that's a perfect way to get rid of your, you know, childhood nemesis.
Wow, now I need to be concerned that my water could be poisoned. That's so funny. Really expensive poison.
You know what? If you'd have to get it, it's heavy water is really expensive, and it's really hard to get, and it's regulated by the Atomic Energy Commission. So, however, if somebody was creative enough, you know, like, So if you see an ice cube and it sinks, that's heavy water.
Oh, weird.
And, you know, the reason our company is called Light Water is because if you put regular water, which is 150 ppm, and our water, which is 94 to 97% less in deuterium, there is a difference in weight on the scale. So
if you have food going in one and the other, would they like layer on top of each other?
Oh, no, because it's not, it's still, the HDO is still water, right? It's still masquerading. It's a spy. It's an undercover agent in our biology. And and it's the elephant in the room. But unfortunately, the room is a china shop, and the elephant's really big and clumsy. So just reduce it. I mean, nobody wants to be told that now they got this new contaminant that they never even heard of before. And if they drink water that costs $20 a liter, they'll reduce it. It sounds so far-fetched. But it's true. If we could go, I mean, if you could go to Antarctica and tow an iceberg back, then that would solve a lot of problems. We wouldn't have to have a factory. But in this case, this is the new information. Yeah, this is the crown on your Christmas tree, as I constantly repeat myself and saying that as time goes on. What
is that one of your biggest challenges as a company? Is sort of convincing all the skeptics?
Yeah, and you know, there's not many of them, because our biggest proponents and some of our biggest customers are doctors, because the biology is easy for them to understand. So as soon as they read about the biochemistry, they go, "Oh my God, how did I overlook this?" Okay, you know, it's like, and they just laugh about it, because they go, "Oh yeah, deuterium. I think I heard of that. Remind me again what that is." You know, guy with 3 PhDs behind his name. So, but they get it. For them, it's the easiest to grok this, because it's a mechanical problem. And Now you could see how it's a problem at the DNA level and enzymes but at the most macro level, you see this mechanical problem of energy production, and you just can't deny it. So nobody has been able to refute this because it's been so elegantly proven as a mechanical problem. And so now it's just a matter of a lot of people can't afford it. A lot of people, it doesn't fit with their lifestyle. Although if you spend $5 a day on Starbucks, you could afford it. But it doesn't, a lot of people, it doesn't fit in their lifestyle, because what if you travel, you got to plan ahead, or you come back and you drink more, your level goes up and down. But we have a lot of customers that are quite happy and quite satisfied with the results. So it's just too new. And I don't know what other intervention that is that says it's not about putting something in your body, it's about taking something out. And when you take this something out and you go, wait, isn't everything in the body there naturally? And it's not like glyphosate, it's not like lead or mercury, it's not this type of contaminant. It's very subtle. It's very subtle, and it damages the energy pathways. And yeah, it's like I said, it's a hard sell if you say, hey, there's a new contaminant you haven't heard of, and by the way, you're gonna have to spend $300 on water a month to reduce it. And you can never really reduce it fully, because you're going to continue to have to be on this water. So yeah, but when you sell it as if, look, we've discovered a new standard in water purification, then it becomes a different ask. So it's like, yes, not everybody, this standard is new, and not everybody's caught up to this standard. And we're only of 4 factories that can create this standard, but deal with it. There's a new standard in water purity. That's what it is.
And is that the goal, to reach everyone and be the new standard, bring the price down?
I wish we could, until somebody comes up with we're in the Frank and Orville Wright days of this. So our technology, even though it works, it's expensive. You can't make a lot of it for everybody. Like, if you want to change the world with this, it won't happen. The only way you're going to change the world is if your gas lamp becomes a light bulb. So we're still in that phase where new technology that still hasn't been created. It's like sitting around a campfire 50 years before the light bulb was invented and thinking, yeah, I think that's coming. So even though we can reduce the deuterium in the water now, the process that we use is very industrial. You couldn't do it. You couldn't do it at home. You couldn't do it cheaply. You couldn't do it at a large scale. So I think we're very nascent in this belief. So we just say, look, we're doing what we can. The new standard that exists, it's up to everybody that recognizes that the standard exists to figure out a way to advance this. And maybe somebody will come along, some unknown Tesla, unknown Edison, and say, look, I figured out a filter everybody in their home can have to reduce the water down by 20%. Because that's really the most, if you want to change humanity, change their water down by 20%. And so maybe somebody will come up with a home unit. Right now, the science and the physics has not allowed that. So it's like, that's why I equate it to a Franklin or the Wright brothers plane compared to modern jet travel. We're very early on this, very, very early. But for the few people that are doing this, it's a game changer. And I'm most excited about the possibility in athletics. I mean, it's fantastic for people that are, it's an energy, again, it's an energy game, right? So what are the tricks of how to not only gain energy, but sustain energy? And then as an armchair gerontologist, most interesting to me is how to regain energy that was lost, right? How to turn back the clock, or at least you could slow down the clock, but how do you turn back the clock? And is it even possible? And these are the exciting conversations that I like to have, because it's, while we're here, why not try to figure that out? We might not succeed, but at least it's a quest. There's some valiant quests in our history, and one of those quests is the quest of long life.
Yeah, we talk vaguely about anti-aging or pro-youthing But like, can we talk about your N of one study? How do you feel now that you're depleted? Like, you just subjectively, what could we expect if we end up getting to your level?
When you drop down the 120 range and you'll stay there, you'll notice your metabolism increases. So my metabolism is super fast right now. It's like,
So do you just eat a bunch all the time?
I can or I can't, right? I could fast. I can go a couple of days without even worrying about it. But if I eat, I could eat 4,000 calories and it's just burned off. Like, my body's very efficient right now. And skin, you have benefits in collagen, and this is actually proven through a Chinese study. This is quantifiable. So this is what people report. Other people report other things too, but we don't really we don't want to run afoul of the FDA. And now, water is not a cure by any means. It's just your own body that's deuterium depleted does things that if there's, the body has an interesting strategy. Like, if you have injuries, the body will wait. You have a chronic injury. That chronic injury can be healed years or decades later. The body's just waiting for the energy to do it. So healing ability, I noticed in myself that my healing ability, like if I get injured, is it's better. I'm 50 and it's better than it was in my late 30s. So it's like my healing ability is like I'm 30. I mean, my early 20s, I was pretty ill, so I don't go. I think the best I ever felt was my cardio is off the hook. I mean, for somebody that spends too much time in front of their screen, it's insane how good my cardio is. So without much effort. So these kind of practical benefits, and then it really is a game changer. And people call me all the time and tell me that it's changed their lives too. But it's not for everybody, and that's why we took the scientific. We lean on the scientific approach for people. We said, look, if you're going to commit to this, I don't want to be responsible for you failing at it. So, because you're going to spend some money on this. So I want you to be educated on what this is first. I want you to know that it's for you, and I want you to take it seriously, because you're going to, over a year's time, it's going to cost you, and you want to get something out of it. So you want to do it right. But when you do reduce the deuterium level, and again, if you're older, you'll feel it faster than you are if you're younger. If you're sicker, you'll feel it faster than you are if you're not. Okay. And some things just, you can't move the needle on very quickly anyway. Okay. So everybody's different, but across the board, I see everybody's just this lightness improve. I see their skin improve. I see their metabolism improve. I see things like this. And if you look at the studies that were done even 50 years ago on mammals like mice and dogs, you see the long-term benefits, like the multi-generational benefits. You go, wow, this is incredible, and this is what these people are getting the benefit of that are living in these areas where their ancestors, their grandkids, everybody's on this cycle of lower deuterium depletion. So you grow to maturity faster, you're healthier, you have more offspring. This is what these studies have shown. So it's a strategy for energy. Even the migration of birds, they fly thousands of miles from Alaska or northern Canada, and they fly to the tropics. Then they fly all the way back to lay their eggs. Why? Because there's a little less deuterium in the food and water up there. So it's an innate strategy. It's an intuitive strategy that nature has developed, that they have a higher chance of not only survivability, but growing to maturity and quantity of offspring too, just in a slight delta of difference in the level of deuterium. This is a global phenomenon, and it fits a lot of blanks, like I mentioned. And for me, it was fantastic, because my entire life, I was like, I grew up weaker and sicker than other kids. So I'm like, I got to catch up, and this is important to me now. So I was always looking for ways I could I could cheat or quantum leap or paradigm shift. How do I get ahead? Without too much work. So this will get you ahead without too much work.
Okay, so where can the fitheads find out how to get depleted and get ahead without too much work?
Drinklitewater.com. Litewater is spelled Litewater, so it's drinklitewater.com. That's our main website. We also have deuterium-test.com for the testing, and you can get to that through the main website as well. We have Deuterium Depletion Summit. We hold a summit once a year where we invite all the world's leading experts and scientists in the field of dynamics, talk to people that are more interested in the research and the scientific medical aspects of this and the new science, if you will, and the biochemistry behind it. And then if you're a researcher and you really want to get in deep, you can go into the deuterium-depletion.org, where you can find most of the studies that exist on this in every language that exists. So I've been busy for the last couple of years, and I'm excited because it's given me the energy that I need to keep going and keep doing this and keep being excited about sharing this. Like I'm sharing this from my own, from my own experience. So,
I love it.
What keeps me going is not only that it's worked for me, but the people that say, hey, this works. And I go, wow, this really does work. It's simple, but it works. And simple, if you find something that simple works, stick to it. So when we build a factory here in the US, then the price will go down. But right now, like I said, it's baby steps, and we're very early. It took over 10 years to figure out how to even create a commercial facility that we have now. It's like, I love this because I get to geek out on the science and the technology, and not just the use of the product. There's actually it's exciting because there's problems that are being solved that we're solving that are new problems that haven't been solved before. So anytime you are around anything new or original, there's a lot of great energy around that. There's a lot of great prosperity around new information. So this is new information, and I invite everybody to use it for themselves.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you giving all this info and your insights.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to the Fit Heads. If you can rate and review on Apple Podcasts, that helps us out a whole lot. And we'll see you next week.